In this video, we're going to look at 8 colonial laws that sound insane today, so let's get into it. Number 8. No car, no problem. Imagine you are a person living in New England in 1647, and you just lost your horse. Bad luck, but you don't need to worry, because you can just go out into the streets and take someone else's horse. Just make sure it's an ox or cow, not a human slave. Under Massachusetts law, if your animal died or was stolen, you could take the first animal you saw on the street that belonged to someone else. You would then ride that animal to the nearest jailhouse, where you would turn it over and wait for your original animal to be found. If it never was, then you got to keep the new one. This law may have been passed due to how difficult travel was during the winter months, especially if you didn't live close to where you needed to go. It wasn't like you could just pop into a car dealership and buy a replacement vehicle like you could today. And there were plenty of people who couldn't afford to keep a horse, so they may have relied on this law to get them to work on time. However, there were some limits to this law. After all, you couldn't just steal any random animal off the street. It had to be an ox or cow, meaning no dogs, pigs, goats, or sheep. It also couldn't be a slave, which means you couldn't take a horse from an African American family without facing some serious consequences. Number 7. No paper trail. So you're in Boston in 1658, heading into town to do some shopping when suddenly you realize you left your wallet at home. Ah man, but you still want to buy that sweet new hat you've seen in the shop window. What do? Easy. You forge a signature onto a blank check and pay for it. Wait, what? Yep, that's right. In the colonial days, you didn't even need to have a bank account to write a check. This is because there were no paper checks or digital records. Instead, people would literally sign their names onto a blank piece of paper that would then be given to the person they were paying. These pieces of paper would then be kept by the store owner until they needed to exchange them for something else. They could either be exchanged for cash, or they could be used as payment for another purchase. This system worked well for both buyers and sellers. Buyers didn't have to carry around large amounts of cash, and sellers didn't have to worry about counterfeit money. The only problem was when people started forging signatures onto blank pieces of paper and paying for goods with fake money. But this was such a rampant problem that Massachusetts lawmakers had to pass a law against it. In 1658, they passed a law that stated, "If any person shall hereafter utter, publish, or put in circulation any order or direction to any person named therein, to pay a sum of money upon demand without the name of the maker, being subscribed, every person so offending shall be punished by fine or imprisonment." Even though this law was passed to stop people from using forged money, it was still easier to just pay in cash. Now blame it on the dog. So you walking down the street in Boston in 1682, when suddenly you see a group of children taunting a small dog. You tell them to knock it off, but they ignore you. Suddenly, the dog bites one of the kids. Do you take the dog home with you and hope that its owner doesn't find out? Nope. Instead, under colonial law, you would be put on trial for the dog bite, even if you had nothing to do with the attack. That's because, in the colonial era, animals were held to the same standard as humans in court. They were required to be licensed and vaccinated, and if they caused damage or injury, their owners could be held liable. But there was a catch. If you were in possession of an animal that committed a crime, you would be put on trial regardless of whether or not you were responsible. This meant that if you found a dog running loose and it bit someone, you could be put in jail even if you weren't the owner. This law was likely put in place to encourage people to keep their animals under control and to discourage them from owning dangerous animals. 5. A royal pain in the butt. When King Charles I came to power in 1660, he brought with him a new set of laws for the American colonies. One of these laws made it illegal to speak about the king in a negative way. It was called the Seditious and Treasonable Tongue Act, and it was designed to silence anyone who criticized the king or the government. The law made it illegal to say or write anything that was considered treasonous, which included criticizing the king, the government, or the royal family. It also made it illegal to spread rumors or news that could damage the reputation of the crown. Those who violated the law were subject to fines or imprisonment. It was a clear violation of freedom of speech, and it was one of the many things that led to the American Revolution. But it wasn't the only law that restricted people's freedom of speech. Another law made it illegal to complain about the government. This law was called the Mutiny Act, and it was designed to prevent people from rebelling against the government. It made it illegal to talk about, plan or participate in any kind of mutiny or rebellion. Those who violated the law were subject to harsh punishments, including exile from the colonies. Number 4. Unwanted advice. Let's say you're hanging out with your friends in Boston in 1672, and someone brings up the controversial topic of religion. You're a Puritan and they're an atheist. You try to convince them that God is real, and they try to convince you that he is who's right? Well, under colonial law, it was you. That's because in the eyes of the law, atheists were considered to be troublemakers. They were seen as a threat to the social order, and were often accused of being spies or agents of the devil. This view of atheists was based on the belief that without a belief in God, people would be without morals or ethics, and would be free to do whatever they wanted. This led to a number of laws being passed in the colonies that made it illegal to be an atheist. These laws made it illegal to deny the existence of God, or to blaspheme against him. They also made it illegal to criticize or mock religious beliefs or practices. Atheists were often arrested and put on trial for these offenses, and if found guilty, they could be fined, imprisoned, or even banished from the colonies. 3. Don't be an animal. Picture this: you're chilling at a tavern in 17th century Boston, minding your own business, when suddenly you hear a ruckus coming from the street. You step outside to investigate and see a group of men beating a horse. Why? Because the horse tried to bite someone. Yeah, really. Under colonial laws, animals were held to the same standards as humans and were expected to behave in a civilized manner. If an animal did something that was considered uncivilized, such as biting someone, it could be punished in the same way as a human. This meant that the horse that bit someone could be put to death. Yes, you heard that right. Put to death. The punishment for an animal that bit someone was usually the same as the punishment for a human who assaulted someone: a fine. However, in some cases, the animal could also be put to death. This was usually done in cases where the animal was considered to be vicious or dangerous. The punishment for an animal that killed someone was even harsher. The animal was usually hanged. This was meant to serve as a warning to other animals that humans would not tolerate their behavior. No. 2. Say it, don't spray it. You're walking down the street in Boston in 1681 when suddenly you smell something foul. You look around and see a man relieving himself against the wall. You tell him that's disgusting, and he tells you to mind your own business. What do? Well, under colonial law, you could arrest him. That's because in the eyes of the law, public urination was considered to be indecent and disorderly conduct. This was seen as a threat to the public order and was punishable by a fine or imprisonment. The law also made it illegal to urinate in public places such as streets, sidewalks, and even doorways. This was seen as a sign of disrespect to the community and was not tolerated. But the law didn't just apply to men. Women were also prohibited from urinating in public, and those who violated the law were subject to the same punishments as men. The law was designed to keep the streets clean and orderly, and to prevent people from engaging in indecent behavior. It was also a way to punish those who were considered to be lazy or irresponsible. After all, if someone needed to urinate, they could always find a private place to do it. If they were willing to walk a few extra blocks, no one, "Sorry, we're closed." Imagine you are in Boston in 1677, and you need to buy some food. You head to the nearest grocery store, but you're shocked to find it closed. It's Sunday, so most stores will be closed. Yep, that's right. In the colonial era, many businesses were required to close on Sundays. This was because the Puritans believed that Sunday was a day of rest and should be spent in religious activities. This meant that no work could be done on Sunday, including farming, fishing, and even cooking. Many shops and businesses were forced to close their doors on Sundays, which caused some hardship for those who needed to buy essential goods. The Puritan influence on colonial laws extended to many other aspects of life as well. For example, dancing, singing, and even playing sports were banned on Sundays. People were also forbidden from traveling on Sundays unless it was for religious purposes. Alright guys, that's all for this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Also, please leave a comment below with your thoughts, reactions, or any stories you might have that relate to this video. Thanks for watching.